Hi, welcome to Flite Test. I'm TJ, and today we're going to do a quick install on the M9 gimbals into the Taranis X9D. It is the single best upgrade you can do for the Taranis, and you're only going to need two tools, a Phillips screwdriver and a 2.5mm hex driver. Grab your stuff and we'll get started. All right, when we get started, the first thing we want to do is take the battery out of our radio. Depending on which battery you have, flip it over, pull it out. And then we have 6 screws on the corners and 2 at the top that we need to remove using our Phillips screwdriver. Now that we have all 6 screws either loose or removed, when we pull the back off of the Taranis, there is some ribbon cables that connect the front to the back. Also, you have these 2 switches at the top that are kind of sandwiched between the cases. So they may fall out, and if they do, you just want to remember kind of which orientation. And if you don't, it's not the end of the world. You can always adjust it inside the radio itself. So we'll crack the shell. And like I said, you have one switch kind of fall out already, and this one here, just loosen it up a little bit, it'll pop right out. There we go, and lay it open. And like I said, you can see the 2 ribbon cables here that we don't want to pull on. To remove the gimbals, we have 3 plugs for each gimbal. You can see the wires here. I'm going to remove the big one and the 2 small ones for the trim on both gimbals. So if your connectors are a little tight like mine are, just use a little screwdriver on the corners here and give it some motivation to come out. So we got one of them disconnected. Now we'll get this other side. Pull the 2 connectors out for the trims, and just like we did, we'll just use a screwdriver to help pry out the side just a little bit. There we go. So now they're disconnected, we'll put the case back together, turn it around just enough to remove the gimbals. We have 4 screws on the corners, and we'll use our hex driver for this. Just remove all 8 screws and the gimbals will come right out. Now these screws, we will not be reusing them. On our new M9 gimbals, they come with longer screws, and those will be the ones that we need to use. Now with all the 8 screws removed, when we lift the case up this time, the gimbals are loose. Spin it back around here, lay our switches out of the way, and they'll lift out. The only thing we have to be sure of is right here on the corner, it might get connected underneath, so just be careful when you're removing them. Same thing for up here on your wires. Just be sure when you're removing them you're not doing anything crazy. And then now for our new gimbals, when we drop them in, if you look here, we have the sensors on the left side, and the sensors want to go to the outside. So your throttle stick, depending on which one you want to do, goes here. In order to disable our throttle, if you see, both gimbals are the same. They're both spring activated still. So in order to disable our throttle, we're going to want to take one of the included small silver screws, and we're going to put it right in this hole. So you drop your throttle down, you'll hold it, and we'll install the screw here, and you'll see it'll rest in this little divot, and that'll release the spring tension on our throttle. So we'll do that with one gimbal, and we'll just pick this one Inside of our screw kit here, you'll see the 4 black screws that are to hold the gimbal in place, and then our throttle release screw here. Take our throttle screw out, lay the other 4 to the side. Alright, now that we have our throttle screw, release the spring tension on the throttle by holding it down. Insert the screw into the hole, and we'll start screwing it in. Now when it's coming through, just want to make sure that we're not screwing it into the side of the plastic. Just want to make sure it's kind of over top of this divot as it comes through. Just screw it all the way in. And now you'll see when we let go of the throttle, it no longer wants to spring back to the center. But you can see it has no tension right now. So the next thing we'll do is we'll adjust the tension to how we like it. And for me, we have 2 different choices. You have a smooth tension here or a ratchet. For me, I don't like the ratchet feel, so I'm going to use the one on the inside, and we'll just tighten it down to whatever your personal preference is. For me, I like it just enough to where it doesn't want to move the throttle by itself. So that feels pretty good there. So when we let go, the throttle stays, and we're good to install this gimbal. So like we said a minute ago, our sensor goes to the outside, and since this one's set up for a throttle, it'll go on the right side on the inside of the case, so it'll be on the front side, it'll be our left stick. So when we install it, just be sure to slide it under the wires and under the boards for your trims. It'll line up, kind of pop into place here. And before we put the other one in, we'll go ahead and get this one installed. So holding my fingers on the back of it, we'll turn our radio over, use our longer screws, and start getting those installed. I'm not going to tighten that one all the way up until I have another one in, just to make sure we're lined up correctly. Now when you are tightening up these screws, be sure not to over tighten, because you are screwing into plastic. So it will strip out if you're not careful. So we just want to snug them up without going too crazy. And there's our throttle stick. Now we'll just stay right on the throttle stick, turn it over. And the way this works is the first one we want to plug in is the big connector. Just be sure the pins line up. Push it down. And now you'll see your trim wires are 2 different lengths. You have a short one and a long one. There's a little groove on the top and a groove on your bottom connector. So the short one goes on the bottom. Plug that in, and the long one goes over on the inside. So now our throttle gimbal is installed. We can move on to the next one. And just like we did before, we don't need to remove the tension on our throttle, since this is not our throttle stick. And we'll just go ahead and install it as is. So our sensor goes on the outside. So spin it around, being sure not to pinch any wires. There we go. And just like before, we'll hold it in place, flip it over, and get our screws out. Just be sure to hold it and start installing screws. Alright, now that we have all 4 screws on our second gimbal, we're ready to plug in the wires on the inside again. Just pull our switches out of the way, And just like before, we'll start with the big connector, plug it in, and the short trim goes to the bottom and the longer one goes to the inside. Now if you're like me and wasn't paying attention to where your switches were, when you install them again, it really doesn't matter with the Taranis which way the switch goes, because within the software, when we set up a model, we can always adjust it and change the direction inside the software. So when we put them back in, you'll notice it has these little black spacers. They go to the bottom of the switch. All right, when we go to put it back together, get your switches lined up. They'll kind of pop down into place here. We'll bring the back of the case to the front so our switches stay in line. Line it up. Don't force it together, but it should just kind of slide in. And use one hand to hold it as we reinstall our screws. So we'll put one on this side starting off. And one on the other side just to hold it together. Reinstall the other 4 screws. Now if you notice, while I'm doing this, I'm holding the front of the radio off the table so we're not putting undue tension on our gimbals. Now we have our screws back in, we can install our battery. Put your battery cover back on. And now we're ready to calibrate our newly installed gimbals. So turn the radio on. Just exit out of everything. You want to hold menu. Comes up to radio setup, hold page down. You'll see it comes up to your calibration menu saying press enter to start. So press enter. It says center your sticks and sliders. So our sliders, we have 2 on the sides here. When you go up and down, you'll feel a divot in the middle, so put those to the middle. And same thing for your pots here on the top. There's a small divot in the middle. Find your center throttle here. Other stick is center. Press enter when done. Now it says move your sticks and pots, so we want to go the full resolution we can, so all the way to the sides, corners. Just make a couple big circles with your gimbals, and don't forget to do the same thing with your other sliders here on the side, just all the way up and down. Once we have that done, press enter and we are calibrated. If you notice, your sticks moved to all the corners and we are done. Alright, that was a nice quick install of the M9 gimbals and our X9D. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you want to catch more, don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell so you get notifications when we upload anything. Thanks for watching. We'll catch you next time.